Hey, we have the green bars, we have the live counters ticking up, so we should now be live, which of course means welcome back to the Storytime Network. We're here with an older favorite. I think the last time I played Nioh on stream was like fucking a year or two ago. I think two. But we're going to be doing something different today because, just go over here, I am joined by Fuzzy, I should also mention. Hello.
You think natural selection will eventually lead to the death of altruism? Humanity?
No.
That's a very direct and straightforward answer. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Because we're seeing that, I think the human race will die out before altruism does. And it'll be as a result of, dickheads. I just want to quickly say, I'm glory grinding today so that I can transform into her. That's 100,000. I've got 28,000. Gonna take a while.
I offered to either help him install some mods or just use Cheat Engine for it, but some people want to do things legitimately.
Apparently, I have standards. Yeah, let's see how long this takes me, and maybe I'll take you up on it eventually. Anyway,
Let's see where you are at the end of today's stream, and then we'll see how valuable your resolve is.
Actually, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna turn the sound back down. I can't be arsed having it this loud. Anyway, so as I was saying, yeah, like, I genuinely do think that, dickheads who, because, like, I'm assuming that the point you're trying to, or the point you're pondering is that the people who survive will be the dickheads.
Something along those lines, yes.
Without altruism. I think they'll kill the human race before that becomes an issue.
No, I say this more because the society we live in under capitalism has become increasingly geared towards individualism and selfishness. Especially because that is the easiest way for the people at the top to, it's twofold. It's the bread and circuses issue, which means a lot of people just no longer care. And it's also the thing of those in power turning us against each other. So those things in combination sort of have made a very society where altruism is not only not rewarded as much as it used to be, it's even punished to a certain extent in many ways.
I don't know. I definitely think there is still altruism out there. It's just, people just don't talk about it as much, because the people who are truly altruistic aren't going to be crowing about it, are they?
That is one of the primary issues, yes.
So I don't think so. As I said, I think the human race will have been fucking murdered by the climate long before then.
The thing is, you are... Will millions die? Yes. Possibly even billions. Will the human race die out because of the climate issues? No. Now that, we are too cockroachy for that. A lot of things could potentially cause the extinction of the human race. But actually, it's a lot harder than you'd think. Because first of all, there's a lot of us. Second of all, there are enough of us in remote locations that will not immediately be nuked to hell to propagate the species, though there will be they will suffer from the bottleneck effect, but enough. The thing that a lot of people don't realize about inbreeding is that eventually, as long as you survive long enough, it kind of sorts itself out. It takes hundreds of generations, yes, but, like, time is often not a factor in these calculations. So yeah, climate, is it going to destroy the majority of the population? Absolutely. Is it going to cause extinction of the human species? No, it's going to take more than that. It would actually, at this point, it would take a concerted effort to cause the full-on extinction of the human species.
I hate these heads.
So, there is that.
I like how we're sort of pessimistic in different ways.
Okay, speak on that.
Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are of the belief that, yeah, dickheadishness is going to win out in the end.
Yes.
I'm of the belief we're all gonna be dead before that can happen. Pessimism in two different ways, on two different ends of the spectrum.
Okay, yeah, no, but it's like, you also have to remember the breeding issue.
Wait, which breeding issue? That we're gonna breed too much, or that we're not breeding enough?
Probably the altruists are going to breed less.
Yeah, that's fair.
People who are not altruists.
That's fair, yeah.
Not out of, like, because we live in a world where the altruistic thing is to not bring children into the world.
Yeah, no, you got a point there.
By default, that's why I say, because, like, it's also, dickheads, let's be real, they probably find it much easier to just lie to women.
Yeah.
And, like, it's much easier to... Not just... There's plenty of women who are dickheads. Let's not be, let's be equal opportunity pessimists.
Cough, cough,
Basically, it's much easier to breed, as it were, and we say this as two individuals who are unlikely to... Well, I at least am unlikely to ever have a biological child. I have considered adopting, which is probably the more ethical way of doing it, though adopting as a single parent has its own sort of issues.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's just one of those things where it's very difficult to properly conceive of a world where it's easier for altruists to live than not.
I mean, it's just hard at the moment because there is just so much shit going on in the world, and I'm realizing that this is a talk that has turned to a, fairly depressing side, but,
Do you know what's funny?
What?
This is actually only the second most depressing topic I have in my list of topics.
Oh boy.
I'm not going to bring up the first most, because I think we need more than two people for that particular topic, and we need to, we probably need Gen on for that one, because it's one of those things that requires more real-world real-life experience than even all three of us, including Jack, have.
Mm-hmm.
Look, y'all should know by now. Ice is what I bring to the table. And I don't mean that in a necessarily good way, but that's where I am at the moment.
Let's go to a less depressing topic.
Do you have one, or would you like me to consult my list?
Give me one moment to just finish killing this guy, because I gotta look something up, which is obviously a little difficult when you've got somebody in your face trying to hit you with a big sword.
I wonder, in the fight, flight, freeze scenario, I'm probably more tend to freeze. But it occurs to me, I've never been in a situation where I've been faced with, well, it's not that I've never been, but the last time I was in a situation where I was faced with the immediate threat of violence, I was 8 years old and developed lifelong PTSD. So, let's just pretend for the sake of my sanity that I've never been in a situation where violence has been the immediate, has been the immediate threat. I don't know how I'd react nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you get into these sort of, or hear about these situations where, people stepped up, you do wonder how you would react in that sort of situation as well. But in terms of the topic I was going to bring up, I recall, I don't remember what stream it was, but I believe you asked about why. Did you ask about why people have foot fetishes?
Yes. Oh, do you have more to add to this?
Yes. Okay. So I can't confirm this, but I came across a Instagram post of a Tumblr post that said, so in psychology class we got to learn why foot fetishes are so prevalent. Basically, your brain stores the structural information for your body generally in the correct order, i.e. the info for your ears is stored next to the info for the head, which is stored next to the neck, etc. But the info for the feet is stored right next to the info for the genitalia, and so sometimes these two sections of information can overlap and make you want to lick some toes.
Oh my god, this is revolutionary. I had no idea. Huh. Yeah, that does really... Okay.
Does that make sense for
huh?
you? As somebody who's, more
yes, it
on
does.
that
as
side of
someone
things?
Who is in the... What? Or what? Repeat that, please.
What was that?
Could you repeat what you just said?
I mean, does that make sense for you as somebody more who studies more on the psychological side than, say,
yes,
I do?
Yes, because this is not an isolated thing. Wires get crossed in the brain all the time. So if those brain regions are located close to each other, then it makes complete sense in hindsight that those particular wires could get crossed. It is absolutely something that can happen.
Okay, so we've finally answered one of our questions.
This is a revolutionary moment. We should... Someone clip this. Yeah, oh no, the reason I was asking about the last stream I was on before my hiatus is because that was the stream where I talked about a man who ended up boning his own parakeet. The light novel. And the reactions that you gave were just wonderful, and there was this very.
I mean, I might give another one of those reactions again, because, like, I don't remember that. I think I purged it from my brain. Also, I'm so glad you said light novel, because I thought you were going to talk about somebody who actually bowed their parakeet, and that would have made me sad.
I don't know if that can even, like, happen.
People will
like,
have
physically,
tried.
I don't think that...
You know.
Well, no.
You know people will have tried.
I learned something else while I was on Reddit to that effect.
Yeah.
Did you know that human sperm can fertilize hamster eggs?
I didn't know hamster eggs in particular, but I feel like I did know that we could cross-fertilize.
Now, it will never be anything more than a single cell. Like, it fertilizes, but it can't actually, like, go from a single cell to a multi-cell. But the fact that it's... Not only can it happen, it's apparently used as a male fertility test. Like, in the science... Like, an actual medical test.
I mean, I guess it would be easier to get an egg from a hamster than it would from a actual person.
Easier and probably more ethical if you think about it.
Probably. I mean, depends how you feel about hamsters getting, you know...
They are... Oh! There's another thing. Again, I have a tendency to, like, doom scroll in the darkest moment. And so another thing I saw was... And this is a more, I'm not even having to first, apply one of my topics, because it's funny that this is just coming up organically.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I saw that made me think is that there was a chimpanzee named Noam Chomsky.
Yep.
Who was the subject of an experiment that was a direct attempt at rebutting Noam Chomsky, who I think you know, right? The famous linguist and writer.
Yep.
Who suggested that humans just uniquely have evolved a language center in the brain that is unique in the animal kingdom. And he was kind of right, because even though Noam Chomsky was taught sign language, he was never able to apply language in an existential manner. He was never able to string words into sentences organically. And essentially, he was never really able to communicate with the concept of words and higher order thinking. That got me thinking.
Can I just say quickly, though? So we're the only apes that give ourselves depression?
Yes.
Cool.
So I got to thinking. We are uniquely sapient. This is known.
Yeah. Or at least for the time being, yes.
But we know for a fact that lots of animals, like chimps and gorillas, and apparently also hamsters, tying back into our previous point, feel emotion and, like, can form emotional bonds and long-term, like, emotional feelings and communication. So, question then is, do we hold too broad a view of Sapien, or even too narrow a view of Sapien, in that we are basically learning that emotion and sapience, as we understand it, like human sapient intelligence, are not necessarily a package deal.
That is definitely an interesting question. I mean...
Because there's plenty of dumb as bricks animals that feel emotion, like dogs, for example. Dogs are basically the furthest thing from sapient, but if you ask if dogs feel emotions, then that's just a known fact that yes, they do, quite strongly at that.
I mean, are there any animals that don't feel emotions?
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, well, emotions in the sense that in the human sense of the word. Emotions that are related to social aspects of existence,
Right.
rather than just strictly biological aspects. For example, like, fear is an emotion that you can feel both socially and biologically. And as a result, even lizards can feel fear, right? But, like, if you think about emotions like happiness, there's the biological form of happiness, which is just a dopamine release because you did something that your brain is rewarding you for, but there's also the emotional, like, human sense of happiness, which, again, that probably lizards can't feel, or, like, insects can't necessarily feel, but, like, dogs can feel that sort of happiness. They feel happy when they see you.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you, like, just your company can be enough for dogs to be happy. Right? Do you get what I'm saying? That is happiness in a non strictly biological sense. So, does this definition of sapience, as we understand it, need to change?
So
Question.
What is the definition of sapience as we know it now?
It's sort of vague even now.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of the time, whether sapience and intelligence should be tied together or whether emotion and intelligence should be tied together is, I think, a matter of some debate. You can understand my
Yeah.
concerns, I'm sure.
I mean, there's also the fact that, you know, let's be honest, there are some absolutely fucking stupid people out there.
Oh, you don't even have to qualify that. Of course, you know me. I
Yeah.
am a firm believer in the absolute stupidity of the human condition.
So, I mean, if we're defining sapience with intelligence,
well, I think okay. So that in and of itself is an interesting quandary, because
I mean,
not so much.
let's all remember the commonly repeated, at least, potential refrain from what is it, like fucking national park designers who say there's a lot of overlap between the stupidest humans and the smartest bears.
And raccoons, don't forget the raccoons.
And raccoons, yeah.
But no, I do have something of a rebuttal to that argument. What I'm talking about when I refer to this is not the human tendency towards intelligence or stupidity or what have you. What I mean instead is this idea of capacity. Because you have even the most stupid people in the world don't actually have a different brain structure from the smartest people in the world. Now, just because they choose not to use their brains doesn't mean they completely lack the capacity.
Yeah.
Which is the point I'm trying to make. They choose not to, whether by, or rather, they don't use their brains, whether by choice or by happenstance. But that doesn't mean they don't have functioning brains.
Yeah.
The capacity is there.
Hmm.
What they lack is everything else. Which I also, it occurred to you that we sound very, very snobbish when we talk like this.
Do you say snobbish?
Yes, snobbish, elitist, whatever, what have you.
People should stop
I don't
being
feel
dumb,
that
then.
way necessarily. Huh?
Some people should stop being dumb then.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, we do invite criticism. We invite criticism whenever we speak like this, and I don't say that to imply that we should not always fear criticism. It's more just pointing out that there's no real good way of speaking on the human condition in that manner without somewhat sounding like we're kind of crappy people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you always have to be careful about. It's a matter of awareness. Like, this is something I hadn't had to worry about until I met a sort of friend of a friend way back in the day. Sadly, I'm not as much in touch with that friend as I'd like to be, but that's because we're both very mentally ill and have trouble. Okay, that's a separate topic, but I'll actually get into that as well because that's a good conversation piece. But I had a friend of a friend who was rarely enough pretty neurotypical, which is quite rare in my circles. And she would comment whenever I did the thing of they would tell a story, and then I would tell a similar story about myself, because that's how my brain relates to people.
That is how my brain works as well.
Yeah, and that was the first time I experienced the idea that people don't necessarily understand that. Because she took umbrage to it to a certain extent. And that was very confusing for me on a number of levels. But that was when I learned that was a thing that could occur. I'd not known that before.
I knew it was a thing that could happen. I've not had anybody actually call me out on it, necessarily, but it's something that I worry about happening as well. And I do the,
that person was kind of a dick on multiple levels, so in hindsight, I'm like, oh, okay, I was that person of all people, but like...
But yes, when I think about it, I do the, typical at least, my flavor of neurodivergence.
What? Neurodivergent? Like, it's a broad umbrella.
But, going, going through a potential conversation in my head.
Yes, go on.
And, me just, imagining explaining to anybody who would, take umbrage to it of, no, this is just my way of saying I understand and I relate. Whether that's how a conversation like that would actually go, I have no fucking idea, because as I said, it's not happened yet, and, a lot of the time these conversations that I plan out in my head...
They never go the way you think.
Yeah, they never do.
Shower is one of my only solaces in life, but it's also, like, one of the places where I huff the most copium. Look, we are slowly becoming old people. However, you have to admit that some of the Zoomer lingo is pretty good. I really like the opium family of language.
Look, I'll complain about lingo, but I'll still probably end up using it. But yes, in terms of the shower, showering is where I do my actual thinking, because otherwise my brain can't focus.
So I try not to think.
In general, or in the shower?
In general. Because if I think, then my brain is reminded of many things that I would rather forget. So, yeah, I tend to avoid thinking if at all possible. It's actually why I read so much. So, do you want to know something crazy? And it's a reason that okay, so this is something that frustrates me, and I know you understand my frustration, but it's something. And please note, I am not trying to make you feel. That is not my intention. Remote. You know the frustration, I'm sure, of having something you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
And recommending that thing to someone you know will love it.
Is this going to be about me not reading Trash of the Cat Family?
That's why I said I'm not. I'm not saying it addressing you specifically.
Okay.
I realized something.
Yeah.
It's a self-reflection. I a lot more than is reasonable. And the reason I say that is because how much would you say you read on average?
So I mean, here's the thing. In my fanfiction heyday, I was reading a lot. And I do mean a lot. But we're at a point where, if I'm honest, I'm a little burnt out on a lot of the... Well, certainly I think I'm burnt out on My Hero at this point.
Well, you won't have to be for long, because it's
ending
done.
soon, yeah. I mean, I'm in terms of the manga, I'm basically just waiting for it to finish, and then I'll basically binge everything I haven't already read. But we can get on to My Hero later, because I do...
Yes, we will.
We
realize we're going to have to do like a 3-hour-long retrospective on My Hero, right?
To be fair, we've already done up until United States of Smash. I believe the plan was to do basically like 3-act structure. So we've done Act 1 up to United States Smash. I believe the next stopping point was God, I don't remember the fucking name for it, but the war arc.
Liberation Front
war arc, yeah. And then obviously Act 3 is the rest of it. But yeah, so I'm not reading as much now. Also, I think that just because of the fact that I have to... I don't know whether this is the right term or not, but I have to mask a fair amount at work to seem like a normal human being. Especially...
It is a term that is generally more used in the autism community, but it is absolutely something that other flavors of neurodiversity have to do.
But, you know, that sort of thing, I have to, you know, stop myself from doing certain things to seem like a normal human being. And I don't think I have to tell you, it's exhausting.
They're preaching to the choir here, buddy.
Yeah, so I think part of it is that when I get home now, I don't really have the energy for a lot of stuff, or even the attention span. So I will generally end up just scrolling on either Instagram or YouTube Shorts. Which is probably not doing my attention span any favors to begin with. So I'm not reading as much as I would like now. I mean,
right.
On occasion, I will still, like, absolutely blaze through a series. I mean, when I first started reading the Reign of the Seven Spellblades light novels, or the Apothecary Diaries light novels, I fucking blazed through those. So it's just about, finding the right thing, I guess. But,
right, and I get that.
But what was your point in this, now that I've meandered to a point?
Yes, so I was going to roast myself, but then you started roasting yourself. This is, yes. This is why we're friends.
We understand each
reasons.
other in this sense.
Yes. Yes. So, yes, to roast myself, I am very blessed, especially recently, that my parents don't demand that I work or leave the house. And are willing to basically support me for the rest of their lives, if not the rest of my life, because I'll probably outlive them, but you can never tell these.
You'd like to think you'd outlive them.
I would like to, not for my sake, but for their sake. Parents outliving their children is apparently, I will probably never really know this, but it's apparently one of the most devastating things that can occur to a human being. So
it's not great.
I would not want to ever subject them to that, which may or may not be one of the few things keeping me alive. Anyway, but I don't have to work, and my school is also very relaxed. I have extreme levels of executive dysfunction.
Yep.
I can't do things I enjoy. Like, it's... I only recently learned that the term for it was executive dysfunction, by the way.
Yeah.
You want to know how I learned?
How?
Team channel.
Yeah.
People keep spamming ADHD memes because apparently literally everyone in our server has ADHD because we attract each other like some sort of ant colony.
Yeah.
And
I would say
I
would say out of the people who talk on a regular basis, a strong majority of them either are diagnosed with ADHD or very strongly suspect they have ADHD.
Either they have ADHD officially or they have ADHD unofficially, but they all have ADHD.
Yeah.
And so, I have... So, to get to that point, I, as a horrifically I only recently learned that I have executive dysfunction. But the degree of my executive dysfunction is... Again, we all agree that it's not a competition.
No.
Right? But you also need to acknowledge that differences in degree and intensity do exist. Not only on an objective level, but also on a subjective level of how much those differences affect you.
I mean, that's
right?
That's the thing. We're so dead set on comparing extents. We also don't think about or not enough people think about how do I want to describe this? How well a person can take, the hits that life whack them with. And, obviously part of that is, neurotypicals going on and on about, oh, I can handle,
look,
I can handle working a 9 to 5 and driving an hour to work. Why can't you? And it's just like, well, because
I would just like to say the level of venom which you said the word neurotypical brings me joy.
I'm sure there must be sympathetic neurotypicals out there.
There are,
but I'm not sure if I've come across them.
They're the silent majority, I feel.
Yeah.
In the sense that, not that they vastly outnumber the loud minority, but mostly that when they are come face to face in a way when it begins to directly affect them, in the sense that they someone they know or someone they care about is neurodivergent, that is when a lot of people do in fact sympathize and learn and understand.
Yeah.
Like my own parents were like this, right? Like they were not great, and then they made an attempt to become better. Now, again, I acknowledge that I am already lucky in that regard because a lot of people don't have that luxury, that their family is willing to try, but mine were, and it's a great help. But I do feel that there's a pretty decent proportion of people who, when their loved ones are neurodivergent, are willing to at least try. That's not to say that the dicks don't exist.
Yeah.
But they are... I'd like to think... This is one of those things where I'm weirdly optimistic. I'd like to think that for a lot of people, it is just a matter of degrees of separation. And ignorance. Like, this is actually something that comes up in psychology courses a lot. Is that a lot of the time it does come down to things like othering and the existence of, like, ignorance and the lack of exposure is what leads to a lot of the most bigoted opinions and behaviors. Right? Now, there are some people who are just dicks. You know, we hold this fact to be self-evident. But, you get what I'm trying to say. I hope. So, that being said, we have to acknowledge that two people with the same level of executive dysfunctioning, as much as you can measure something like that, may be troubled by it to vastly different degrees, right?
Yes.
Same way that I always use physical ailments as an analogy. There are some people who adapt perfectly fine to being diabetic. And there's some people for whom it, like, destroys their life. And they have to, like, rebuild their entire lives around that fact. So, in the same way, or in a similar way, I do believe that separate degrees, there are degrees to it. And I feel like it's the equality versus equity issue. Right?
Yeah.
Where, yes, we should treat people well, and we should never apply the fallacy of relative privation. But we should also remember that treating everyone equally is not necessarily the answer either.
No.
Sometimes you need to treat people differently depending on what they need. And that it does affect people differently. So basically what I'm trying to say is that even in my own case, even ignoring intensity my subjective level of distress with regards to my executive functioning and mental health issues that are are a consequence of that, or vice versa. I am perhaps not as adaptable because I am just affected very strongly by my executive in a way that I feel like you, for example, can hold a job. You have to mask and it's miserable, but you can hold a job.
Mm.
I do not believe that to be the case for myself.
Yeah.
Because my executive functioning, like I said before, is bad enough that if there wasn't someone to tell me to eat or drink, I would probably be dead of dehydration or hunger. Even in a house full of food. Right? And
I feel like
I do have a point that
I just want to quickly interject. I feel like that's a that's a locked room mystery that that has not been mined by the mystery genre writers yet. How did this person die? They seem to have starved to death, but there's all this food in the house. Oh, they had ADHD. That's why.
Or depression.
Or depression.
Or depression. Yes. Let's be equal opportunity. Horrific mental illness here. Look, this is an equal opportunity stream. We're equal opportunity with regards to a lot of things, even though we do apply equity to some other things as well. Yes, that is a locked room mystery that has not necessarily been mined for all it's worth yet. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is, I am very mentally ill. But at the same time, I am blessed to have a family that is able to support me that is able and willing to support me in a way that is, quite frankly, unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, I have a lot of free time. And it's the monkey spa situation, right? I have a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Because of my executive functioning, I spend very little to none of that free time doing things I actually enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Just because even doing things, you know what the lack of executive functioning is. It's just because you enjoy doing something doesn't mean you can bring yourself to do it. So, my time is mostly occupied by things that are, to me, mindless and able to distract me from my own thoughts. Because the moment I start thinking, I have a panic attack because I have PTSD. And a sort of whole host and a generalized anxiety disorder that is very intense. So, I read a lot.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an idea of how much I read, what would you consider an average novel length?
Average novel length? I believe the generally accepted length is like 70 to 100,000 words.
Yeah. So, by that metric, would you like to guess how many novels worth of content I read on a weekly basis?
Weekly basis. 8.
Because a day is a non-representative sample, and a month
too long.
Could be skewed. On an average week, how much do you think I'm reading?
8.
And how would you feel about that number? Like, what does that number mean? Just for this, maybe you know, but for the sake of our non-existent audience, why don't you just try and give an idea of how much that is?
I mean, that's, you know, at max going by the average we gave is what is it? 800,000 words?
Something. How does that quantity of words of content consumed on a weekly basis?
Sorry, can you repeat
And don't worry
that?
about hurting my feelings.
You went low.
How much what is your first gut feeling when you hear about that quantity of content being consumed on a weekly basis?
You're talking to the wrong person, because that was probably... I don't think I maybe got quite that high, but that is somewhat akin to what I was reading at the height of fan fiction for me.
Okay. But the thing is...
I read a lot, and, you know, a lot of long fucking stuff.
No, I understand.
I mean,
what I'm going to tell you, though...
Yeah?
Is that... you are probably wrong. I don't measure strictly, but you are wrong in terms of quantity.
Am I too low?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Like, a lot. Like, 50 to 100% too
low. Oh, okay.
I am literally averaging in the millions. At least 1.5 to 2 million. On a... in a single. Which, to put that into perspective, assuming a reading speed of about 100 words a minute, which is honestly not that high, but it's not that low either. 1 million words would take 10,000 minutes for most people. Which would mean I spend majority of my waking time reading. And that is true. It's not something I'm necessarily happy about, but I think I read an unreasonable amount, is what I'm trying to get at. As a result, it's very difficult for me, as a person who is autistic and generally has a weird relationship with empathy. I'm not necessarily the lowest empathy person in the world, but I'm, like... degree and location of my empathy can tend to vary a lot. But basically, I am... It's difficult for me to wrap my head around other people not having as much free time as I do and not reading as much as I do.
Right.
And that's why I can occasionally become frustrated. But I understand that that's a me problem. Basically what I'm trying to say is, I understand the frustration of of sharing something you know people are going to like, but I also understand that a lot of that frustration is internal. Which is why I do always try and... I'm never trying to give you a hard time about the recommendation thing. I hope you understand that, because like, I get it. It's a me problem. Just don't... Even at your peak, you probably don't read as much as I do.
Probably not. It would seem unlikely.
Yes. And because of my difficulties in understanding and with empathy in general, it can be frustrating, but I basically now know for a fact that this is something that is... But that's actually a tangent. What I'm basically trying to say is that my executive functioning is miserably low. And it affects me in quite significant ways. And the reason I bring this up is that it has made me have to think a lot more about what I do when I can function.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I basically end up in this situation where my functioning is has a very narrow window.
Mm-hmm.
And so the things that I can and cannot do, I have to prioritize very harshly. That can be very stressful.
Yeah.
The reason I'm floundering is because we've gone on such a long tangent that I forgot what my original point was.
Hooray! ADHD!
I'm sure if I go back and listen to the VOD, I would know what my point was.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is we need a project manager who doesn't have ADHD to help us do things.
But as we've,
as we've established, we don't know anyone.
Yeah, we don't know anyone.
Oh! I've remembered!
Okay.
Not necessarily my main point, but I have remembered one of them.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ways that lack of executive function shows up, and it's honestly one of the things that affects me the most. Not messaging someone unless they message you first.
Yep. Yep.
Letting entire relationships die because of that.
Nope, 100%. 100%.
We would probably not be friends if not for this. Not because we don't like each other, but because we are incapable of messaging first.
Yep.
Maintaining communication. It's only through this stream which we... Can I be... I'll be... How do the kids say it? I'll be 100 with you here. Something like that.
Mm.
We use emojis for it, so I don't know how to say it in words. This stream for us is not really a job, it's therapy. Can you find it in yourself to disagree to that?
Maybe not so much therapy, but it's definitely like it can definitely be a de-stressor for me.
It's not fair.
And I do rely on it to get me to do. I mean, honestly, if it weren't for doing the anime streams, I would not be watching seasonal anime anymore, or at least not as much as I do.
That's why I don't watch it anymore. Yes.
Because I just wouldn't have, as you said, the executive function to do it.
Yeah, it's just yeah, we would probably not speak to each other.
No.
Due to sheer mental illness, if not for the stream. So at least for that, I'm thankful.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make it very difficult to maintain relationships with people you don't like have this with.
Yeah.
And I've actually been thinking of a separate project that does in fact have the potential to bring in a not unreasonable quantity of money for us. Because it's something that has nothing to do with getting an audience.
Mm-hmm.
But it will require us to do something that is perhaps a source of great fear.
Let's discuss it off stream.
Yes, we will. But the other thing I was gonna say is that I want to learn how to send people messages and maintain relationships. I just don't know how. Like, there's people who I really enjoy talking to who I just haven't spoken to in a long time because, you know,
Yeah.
I won't message them and they won't message me, so like we just don't know each other anymore, I guess.
Let me give you an example, and this is appearing to be the end of a friendship. So, I had a guy I knew who was on my course at uni. We got on really well. Um, Even met up a couple of times during the pandemic to just walk and talk. Um, and one day in 2022, he actually asked me if I wanted to co-write a historical article with him about One Piece and
I remember this.
how it
Yes.
depicts pirates. Um, and we were talking and we were making plans, and then I went through an intensely busy period.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember around the start of 2023, I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
we took a break from streaming.
Yes, I was there.
Yeah, that
We
was
all not only did we take a break from streaming, we basically had no contact with each other during that time
just a
because we
direct
weren't streaming.
yeah, that was just a direct result of that period. Um, of me that was me ramping up at work, and also I was now 3 months into living with my parents, which was a trial at times. Um,
Believe me, I know that feeling.
as well as, stream stuff really kicking my ass because we had. Because, look, I have to do all of the YouTube stuff, and I'm fine doing it for the most part, but you sometimes, especially at the end of the year, when you get a lot of streams where I will maybe unnecessarily go, an extra distance to, say, put chapter timestamps in the YouTube descriptions.
Yes.
And I do that for all of the fucking end of year streams. So so towards the end of that year and the start of the next end of 2022 and the start of 2023, I've got work, I've got stress of living at home with parents, I've got timestamps to do for all the streams we did in December. We're coming up to the end of the fall anime season, so I've got to be watching shows for that. Once we do the end of year anime and fall wrap up streams, I've got to do the timestamps for that, and then I've got to start watching premieres for the winter season. It all became so fucking much, and I basically collapsed under it.
Yeah.
And part of the things that I collapsed under was also this article with this friend, and he messaged me a couple of times, and I didn't have the energy to. Well, part
Yes,
of it, I didn't
sometimes.
have the energy to respond, and I was afraid to respond. No, I haven't done anything for this because I'm got so much else to do. And I kept saying, I'll reply when I have the time and the energy. I'll reply when I have the time and the energy. It took me 9, 10 months to actually end up responding to him and apologizing that I'm really sorry that I never responded to you. Things happened, and mental illness and all that, and I have not gotten a response from him. So
Yeah, I've had a similar situation occur, and in one case, it's actually a person you know.
I mean, we don't need to say the name, but I'm sure I do know. Yeah. It's
where
just one
in
of
that
those things.
case, in that case, what was happening was I was able to. I showed up to the streams and but didn't have the energy for like general conversation because that is in fact something that happens. Is that sometimes something like a stream takes less energy than a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
One-on-one. And so they were quite upset with that, and I can understand where they were coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But that well, you have the energy to stream. Why would you not have the energy to have a conversation? But it happened enough times that it kind of just ruined the relationship.
Yeah.
Even though I tried, but sometimes that's what happens.
No, and I totally get what you mean in terms of sometimes it does take less energy to stream, because especially if I know, I've got you and I've got Jack there, I will sometimes I will just go, okay, I'm just gonna play the game and let those two talk. And maybe I'll chime in,
Yeah, because it's just one of those things where it is an activity that is kind of conducive to ADHD, because you can do enough things to keep your brain occupied without overwhelming it.
Yeah.
While streaming. So sometimes it's just easier to stream, and then that's just how relationships end sometimes.
Yeah.
So that is one of those things, but the reason I say that we need to figure out how to socialize better in general is that, do you know what the worst part of this is? It's not really our fault.
Mm-hmm.
On a number of levels. But I mean a bit more specifically than that, is that it's also not our fault on a, not just because of mental illness, but also on a societal level. It's not necessarily our fault societally, and like society's fault either. And I love to blame society.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, grew up in a very awkward where the people are caregivers, regardless of the quantity and quality of the care that they were providing, just had no idea what the hell the technological information age was going to look like.
Yeah.
And quite reasonably at that. Like, no one had any reasonable idea of, like, understanding what the always online generation was going to look like. It was impossible to understand.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was no reasonable way we could have been taught in our upbringing about how to interact with stressful socialization situations like this. Because children need to be socialized and taught how to socialize. And we, unfortunately, grew up in a time where the way that we were going to socialize in our later life was not the way that society was structured and built in our earlier life. So there was no way anyone could have known enough to help us socialize to any effective degree.
Yeah.
And that is one of the greatest tragedies of our generation, is that, like, there was no way the deck was kind of stacked against us from the start in that regard. So, like, that is one of the things that has contributed to this.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way, where not only do I'm in a bit of an unfortunate situation where my classmates are no longer my peers because I'm older than all of them.
Yeah.
I believe I'm more or less I can be considered a mature student by this point because I'm still doing my bachelor's degree. I'm in my 3rd year of my bachelor's program, and I'm 26 years old.
Yeah.
Where I'm in classes with like 19 or 20-year-olds. Right? It's not something I was ever prepared for.
Yeah.
And part of me is also like, am I a creep for trying to socialize with these kids? Because they're legally adults, but like,
Yeah.
anyone older than you is a literal infant, or anyone older than you is literally ancient. Anyone younger than you is a literal infant. That's just how we are as humans.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I'm surrounded by people who are either much younger or much older than me. So it's difficult to socialize just generationally in that regard. But I also am like, am I a creep for trying to socialize with them? People who are younger, because the people who are older than me are just not interested because they have like established social circles in their own lives, right? And the people younger than me, I can't relate to them as much, and also they're young enough that I'm like, it makes me somewhat uncomfortable, even if they're not necessarily uncomfortable. Like, societally, I'm not in a, and I do not have the luxury of being misunderstood in that way. So it is nerve-wracking, and I met some people who were cool and who was enjoyed speaking to. But that's just the thing, is that like, even I have their Discord handles. I friended them on Discord, but like, either I answer when they don't have the level of executive functioning necessary to, or either I message them when they don't have the level of executive functioning necessary to converse, or vice versa. So it is something of a struggle, and especially because, would you say, you have mentioned it, but for people who are as, also, I will say my psychiatrist has a very nice way of putting it. He says neurodiverse instead of neurodivergent. Which is quite nice. I don't use it personally because I have a more negative connotation of it. But people who are as neurodivergent as we are and affected as intensely by it as we are, hold a job, despite being necessary to live, is not really, it's torture, essentially. I'm not saying that we should abolish the concept of working, though I would like to. But like, we haven't really reached that point in society, and are unlikely to ever reach that point in society. But issue at this point is that I'm sure both of us and I would be much happier if we had the opportunity to do a more remote or less like traditional job.
I mean, that's part of the reason I'm trying to be in North.
Yeah. And another thing is that, like, this is something I brought up on before, and I think it's relevant to bring it up again, is that wanting to be an author having a passion for storytelling, loving the act of creation that goes into writing, lacking the executive functioning to actually write on a regular basis. Am I describing myself, you, or all of the above?
Well, I've done something about that, hopefully.
Oh, please share.
I mean, it's not perfect, but it is working thus far. Got a deal with my mum where if I write a certain amount of words in a week, I get money.
I have...
And if I don't write that certain amount of words, I give her money.
I think the issue is that I'm glad that that works well enough for you.
It's working for now. It's been like 4 weeks.
For me, that doesn't work for two reasons. One, I don't have the level of distance that allows that to... Because I live with my parents still.
Mm-hmm.
I live in my parents' basement quite happily at that. I'm the person that everyone in the mid-2000s was making fun of.
Mm-hmm. People
realized, oh wait, this is just economically and for the sake of my mental health.
Here's the thing, in the mid-2000s, you know, the economy wasn't quite as in the toilet as it is now, so...
True. It was reasonable at the time to live on your own with a minimum wage job or like a couple of minimum wage jobs. But
I mean, the moment it took two minimum wage jobs to, you know, survive on, that's when somebody should have been like, huh, we should probably do something about this. Because even if I think that, you know, people shouldn't necessarily, or, you know, how to word this properly, I do think people should have jobs. I don't think they should be soul-crushing jobs, but I do think people, you know, I don't necessarily think that the, you know, I think jobs should exist. But what I don't think is that people should have to, you know, work to potentially full-time minimum wage jobs to just survive.
I should also note another thing. Not everyone is suited for every job. Right? And that's the direction I'm going in, is that two of us, me especially, are really not suited for the sort of job that the majority of minimum wage jobs tend to be. Right?
Yes.
Especially because, like, you have said as much that you've been struggling recently to that effect, and I totally understand why. Because it is a struggle. So it's why people like us really need something a bit more non-traditional. Because, like, we need the job to survive, but we also need to survive the job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it's why I'm kind of so desperate about the streaming thing, despite the fact that I know that it's unlikely to work out. The reason I'm so desperate to try and make it work somehow is because it's kind of the dream job for the neurodivergent. And the worst part is that it is theoretically something. I do still sincerely believe that it's something that is theoretically possible for us to do. We just need to sort of like, again, I think we would gain a lot from a project manager.
Maybe.
We'll talk about it after stream.
Yeah.
But beyond just that, problem that I've noticed from this, right, is that it's a lot harder to get into a position where you can do one of those non-traditional jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because society looks down on it most of the time.
Well, no, it's just in a matter of availability and competition to a certain extent as well.
There's also that, yes.
And the issue is, it may be necessary to socialize. Because it's the sort of thing where jobs exist, but they are perhaps not advertised as much. And so you need to build connections to be able to do them.
Yeah.
So it is a genuine struggle sometimes to build the necessary connections.
Yeah.
And that's why I am kind of adamant on the whole concept of being self-employed as the priority. But anyway, back to the writing thing. Again, this is a tangent that I have unwittingly led us on. It was not initially intentional. The other thing I was going to say is that the reason your arrangement would not work for me is because I don't even have the executive functioning to do that with that motivation. Right? I think money is not enough of a motivator for me. Again, because I have that safety net, I think, is part of it. Right? Because I live with my family, they are willing to support me. I have that luxury. But the tail end of that is that it means that it's much more difficult for me to muster up. Because, like, executive functioning is already hard enough. But trying to muster it up when it's not a matter of literal life and death is even more difficult. I'm not saying I have it harder than you. I'm never trying to say that. I hope you understand.
No, absolutely.
I always feel the need to reiterate that. But the reason I bring it up is because, for me, the thing that has worked most consistently is I had an arrangement with my mother where she would just, like, sit me down and tell me, hey, write. Stare at you until you write. That scrutiny was working better as a motivator for executive functioning than any amount of, like, material thing, right? For me, the intangible motivation was probably more realistic than the tangible one.
Yeah.
The issue with that, and this is something that causes me a great amount of internal turmoil, my parents are self-employed. They run a small business. Right? You know, I would just also like to remind y'all, support your local small businesses, please.
Yep.
As someone whose survival is dependent on a local small business, please support your local small businesses. It is... We're all struggling, and I get that, but, like, yes, please. They run a small business, and as a result, every employee you hire is, especially if you pay them a reasonable wage, is less money you have to put food on the table, as it were. So they try to do as much of the work as they can by themselves.
Yep.
And the problem is that the nature of that work is the type that I wouldn't be very helpful. It's the type that and this is one of my greatest internal turmoil, is my parents work very hard, and I can't exactly do anything to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah. To continuing in that regard, because my parents have to work so much, they basically come home at the end of the day exhausted.
Mm-hmm. And don't necessarily want to, stare at you.
Yes. And again, it's not their fault.
No.
And I'm not trying to blame them. Mm-hmm. And that's something I hope to get through.
Yeah, no, but, I don't. That's not what I'm getting.
Yeah. But the circumstances are just such that it's how it is, and it's unfortunate, but it is what is sort of getting in the way of me doing a lot of the projects that I need to do. Mm-hmm. Like, another thing is, I do believe we have it in us to make a pretty solid indie game. Because there's enough game-making tools in the modern landscape that you don't need to be, like, a programmer to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But again, we basically are... It needs... Every major project needs a driver. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest thing that we lack. Generally.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been seeking solutions for, with mixed success, but again, we'll talk about it in more detail after the stream. Mm-hmm. But it's something that we do. Suffer due to. And it's something that we don't necessarily need to immediately address, but I do think that we would be happier if we could eventually address it. Mm-hmm. Right? That's just like, I am basically trying to... Like, life is the pursuit of happiness, even though Will Smith is perhaps not the most reliable of role models. Which is a bit of a deep cut, but are you familiar with the movie Pursuit of Happiness?
Very possibly, but only because of like seeing at least one clip of it on like YouTube or Instagram. Is it the one where he's like the stockbroker dude who gets like a semi-internship while having a kid and is like homeless for a bit?
I believe so, yes. Mm. That's not the exact plot, but that you are thinking of the correct one.
Okay.
But yeah, it also features the first... It's also, I believe, the first Will Smith-Jaden Smith collaboration. It's funny, because, Toblerones and all that. Y'all remember that?
Yeah. Look, everyone, it's Kaz Khan!
God, yeah. I wish that... unironically.
Yeah. That anime does exist. Actually, is it still on Netflix? I don't know.
Probably. Just because I don't think they'd be bothered to just, like...
They forgot about it. They can't take it down because they've forgotten about it.
don't deserve an extra large Toblerone.
That fucking anime has such a weird cast, at least dub-wise. Such a weird cast. Anyway,
yeah, Are we... Oh, yes. Life is the pursuit of happiness, right? And I want to not necessarily... Again, and I think happiness is the wrong term to use as well. I think a more accurate term is something along the lines of comfort and satisfaction. The ability to live life comfortably and not be miserable is the basic human pursuit.
yeah.
And I think you can probably say the same. I would like to be able to live comfortably doing things that I actually enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope for the people I care about to also do that.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, it is something of a blessing that my parents are at least doing something along the lines of what they enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Like the particular small business is something that both my parents can derive satisfaction and enjoy. So that's a small comfort in that regard. But the other thing I was going to say is, but the thing is, that is my goal for myself as well. And it's not, I think, unattainable. At the very least, I have to tell myself that it's not unattainable. For the sake of my own, what little sanity I have. Not to say I don't believe it's attainable. I do believe it is attainable. It's just a lot harder than it might seem.
Yeah.
But I also, I don't know. Perhaps it's a personal flaw. Maybe do you ever... I'm sure you can relate just because we know each other well enough that we have a rough idea of what each other's relatable moments are going to be. A relationship where you are constantly worried that you are considering it more important than the other person is.
Yeah.
Can you, like that, I think you can somewhat relate to, yes?
Yes.
Because that is a worry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It can be frightening when you are close to someone and you have to constantly second-guess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do they care as much as I do in this relationship?
Yeah.
Am I as important to them as they are to me? Right? And again, I think what a lot of people don't understand is that I think in the modern day, a bit too much importance has been placed on the platonic ideal of a romantic relationship relative to other forms of...
Yes.
Especially with the increasing proportions of people who are aromantic, asexual.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, the more increasingly visible...
Yes.
...of people who are aro-ace.
Mm-hmm. Or just one or the
remember,
other.
Or just one or the other. Because, let's be real, either one can cause problems in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it might be better to just abstain. I found myself in that situation. Well, I can't say that I found myself in that situation because it's not just a matter of abstaining for me. For me, it's more a matter of even if I didn't abstain, there's unlikely anyone who'd put up with me. So it's like it's probably for the best that I'm abstaining on a number of levels. But which is perhaps a more depressing or self-deprecating way of putting it, but it's something I believe to be true. But especially in the modern era, and I may be biased because I've suffered from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have had very close friends who, immediately upon having a partner, cut contact.
Mm-hmm.
One of them specifically because, like, my best friend, in high school and for a long time after high school, who cut contact because his girlfriend, who was an acquaintance of mine as well, some reason, for a reason that and it's frustrating because she never explained why.
Mm-hmm.
Really just did not like me or was uncomfortable around me, and without ever explaining why, just chose to. I believe, I don't know exactly how this went, but I have to imagine there might have been some sort of ultimatum given the degree to which it was sudden.
Yeah.
But did tell my best friend, like, not contact him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I the most frustrating thing is that to this day I still don't know why.
Yeah.
But because I would have happily accommodated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just like, I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I would have, like, accommodated to the best of my ability. But no, there was no conversation or dialogue. It was just a unilateral cessation of contact. You can tell I'm still not over it because I started to use big words.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is a thing that can happen. And again, my college roommate, who in hindsight I had a very toxic relationship with, he also, the funniest part is that he also acknowledged that it was a toxic relationship, but he was of the opinion that I was the one making it toxic, when it was the other way around. So, again, it's one of those things where you can claim that I have bias in that regard, but I am someone who prides themselves on self-awareness, and I do believe it did not go down like that. But yes, the funniest thing, you know what the funniest thing about that guy is? I brought it up before, but I will bring it up ad nauseum because it's still something that I am not over out of sheer incredulity. He was in a toxic relationship with a girl.
Yeah.
Where they were basically going out without any of the benefits. Imagine a toxic romantic relationship, except neither person believed themselves to be romantically involved with the other.
Okay.
That's what he was. That's where he was at.
Yeah.
I essentially held his hand through cutting off that relationship. Prevented him from, like, I talked him down from the ledge when he was suicidal after that relationship, and then I was the one who convinced him to put himself out there, helped him find someone to communicate with, and then took great lengths to have him reach out to her, and they are still together to this day, romantically.
All right.
And then the moment he basically knew for sure that he wasn't gonna dump him immediately, he decided, yes, please leave my life.
Wonderful.
So that's what I find funny, is that I was a necessary process
Yeah.
for him to get that relationship and then it was also the reason he cut content. So I'm just like, I'm just incredulous. That's one of the few times in real life where I can legitimately say I'm incredulous without a single bit of exaggeration. So yes, but yes, to get back to my point, I believe
good.
have
there is one. I thought this was
yes.
a tangent.
No. We have, for some reason, placed, I think, too much of an emphasis on romantic relationships.
Yes.
And as a result, we neglect. There's a lot of people providing advice of like how to properly be in a romantic relationship. A relationship, the word relationship itself, has been sort of co-opted by the romantic side of it. In the same way that the word love has sort of been co-opted by the romantic side of it, despite the fact that there's like 900 different kinds of love. The love you feel for your family is different from the love you feel for your partner, is different from the love you feel from your pets, is different, well, not necessarily pets are family, is different from the love you feel for a media property, is different from the love you feel for, like, a really good crispy chicken sandwich. Like, though there is something romantic about a really good crispy chicken sandwich, I'm not gonna lie, but, yeah, it's just, there's so many different kinds of love, and there are so many different kinds of relationships, and I feel, and because of the emphasis we have in our society on romantic relationships, we don't teach ourselves and our children and people in general how to properly exist in a platonic relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. No, absolutely.
And that is frustrating for me because a lot of the issues do come about in that way, where you just don't really know what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to maintain a relationship. And I think that's one of those things, is like, when I say I don't know if I am as important to the other person in a relationship, it sounds like we are conditioned to believe that the way I'm saying that, it kind of sounds like I'm talking about a significant other, doesn't it? Not because I am, but because that's just how our society has conditioned us to believe it works. So it is frustrating because I am constantly second guessing myself, especially after the times I've been burned. I'm constantly being like, well, is my relationship with this person as important to them as it is to me?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can relate to that.
No, absolutely. Especially, I feel it especially comes up, or rears its head, when that person becomes friends with somebody you feel like, they have more in common with. And you suddenly start to wonder, wait, how are we friends again? Okay, no.
Or and this is another problem I run into. When that person has friends other than you, you're like, oh, so clearly I'm disposable to, like, especially there is a power dynamic. Like, we always talk about power dynamics, right? There is a certain power imbalance between people who have, again, this is not like, power imbalances are not unique to romantic relationships.
No.
Power dynamics exist. There's less room for toxicity, maybe, to some extent, but even that's a stretch. Power dynamics exist in platonic relationships just as much as they do in romantic relationships. And one of those is the dynamic where person X has a lot of friends or is more social than person Y. And person X and Y are friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because, especially as the person who is very often person Y,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so they are not disposable to me.
Mm-hmm.
I am disposable to them. If they disappear from my life, I will be devastated. If they disappear from, or I disappear from their life, they have people who they can interact with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I've, again, there's a friend I have who you know, who is an acquaintance of yours, but is a friend of mine, and maybe they're mutual friends, who that is the case for. And when that is combined with the whole executive function not being able to reach out first, it's not great. Also, I need to leave for a moment to switch devices.
Alright.
Because I'm realizing I'm having a bit of a blood sugar crash because I haven't eaten enough today.
Mm-hmm.
Again, executive functioning, so I need to go switch devices so I can grab my phone and get food.
That's fine.
One moment. Please entertain. Alright, chat. Talk to Mill now.
I mean, I'm now basically on the final boss of the game, so... Which... Honestly... a lot easier now than it was back when I first did this. Still not, you know, like... amazing. Especially when these fucking heads just decide to, you know, stay just out of reach of my things. Come on. Stay in range, stay in range. Got it. Ow. I don't know whether it's that I've just got more health, or my armor's better. Come on, get in range, Dad. God damn you. There we go.
I have returned.
Cool.
So, this reminds me of our dear departed anthology project.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with that was that it was an anthology project consisting of at least 3 to 4 people with ADHD.
Yeah.
And none of us had the executive function necessary for being a project manager.
Yeah. Or, you know, the time, or, yeah.
The energy, I think the energy is more appropriate to say rather than the time. Because, like, the two are somewhat incompatible, especially recently.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, the... one moment, please. One moment, please. One moment.
Well, that was just rude. Tried to eat me. Missed me.
Alright, I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Ow.
So, yeah. The problem with the technology is that, didn't good, but the problem is that someone needs to be there to...
Poker's along, yes.
Huh?
Poker's along, yes.
Yes. So it's the same with the potential for a little game dev project that I floated by. Right? It's something that it's one of those things that people, the neurotypicals, will never understand this frustration.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the skill set to do something, and you know you do, but you can't do it anyway because of the executive function.
I think part of it that also doesn't help is that we are all friends. And so, certainly on my part, sometimes I will want one of you to do something, but I'm worried that if I say it, it'll come across as a, almost an attack, and it'll be taken badly.
Yes, that is also the eternal worry of people with the anxiety, TM. You do. I am also, like, it's something where, even though we know this, you can't stop yourself from walking on eggshells around people you care about because you don't want them to leave you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the same with me, right? There are always times when friends become frustrated with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's natural. It's healthy.
Yeah.
Right? It's just it's part and parcel of a healthy relationship is not turning it into an echo chamber or a hug box.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I do think we, at least when it comes to our opinions, are good at calling each other out on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something more like tangible, it can be difficult.
Yeah.
Let us, for the sake of illustration, does anything come to mind that you would like to tell me to do that you're worried about? Let's just try and work through this.
Honestly, be more available in terms, not even necessarily just in terms of being on streams, because I understand far too well that, sometimes you just don't have the energy. But part of the issue is, like today, I had to go through Jack to find out if you were actually, or when you were going to actually be around. And my worry was going to be that, especially considering on Saturday, you mentioned the possibility of, doing a stream with the two of us and Gen, who is generally not available until, another basically hour from now, is that you wouldn't turn up until then, but you also wouldn't tell me that you weren't going to turn up until then. And I would be left in basically a state of emotional and almost physical readiness to stream for another 3 hours. Which especially would be bad considering all I've had to eat thus far today is a bar of chocolate.
Oh, that's not great.
No! And I want to make myself something, but that takes time. And I didn't want to, for example, and I also know that, your period of availability can be quite small. So I didn't want to be, in the middle of making food, and then you to go, hey, I'm ready, but I can only be here for the next, 2.5 hours, and I'm just there holding a fucking wooden spatula type thing going, well, this is a bit shit. I'm, halfway through making my food, and now I have to stream, and I don't know what to do with this food, or do I put it off, and I don't know. If you get what I mean.
I totally understand that, and I am... So I have some ideas, actually, for how I can get that. So the issue with my availability, right, and the reason Jack can reach me is simply because I always have my phone on.
Yes.
But I'm not always... I'm a weirdo who primarily only uses Discord on the browser app.
Yeah.
I don't even use the desktop app. I have it open in a browser window.
Yeah.
And I don't. So let me run you through my thought process, and then let me run you through some of the potential solutions I've come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you brought this up. I really am, and I should. And while I do, and so here's the problem, right? You know how you're always afraid that it's going to be perceived as an attack?
Yeah.
The reason for that is that, especially between mental illness, the current reactionary state of like the way culture has become a very reactionary thing,
Mm-hmm.
and also the fact that we as neurodivergent
I mean,
able
yes.
people.
The other thing is one big part of ADHD in particular is rejection sensitivity.
Yes. And not only is it rejection sensitivity, we have been grown up being given crap for things that are not necessarily in our control. And so we are more sensitive to that.
Another fairly large part of ADHD that I know I experience is, problem regulating emotions, which obviously rejection sensitivity is a part of, but can also spiral into, for example, anger, which can lead to lashing out.
Yes. And what I'm trying to get at is, because of those factors above, and this is something, again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just trying to tell you my experience in a way that we can relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that about my availability, my gut instinct was to become defensive.
Yeah.
But thanks to the wonders of cognitive behavioral therapy and 2 years speaking to a psychoanalyst who literally looked like Sigmund Freud, that is not a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I will try and find and show you a picture of him at one point. He does. He has the general face shape and hairline of Sigmund Freud.
Mm-hmm.
But I have sort of been training myself to increase my levels of self-awareness and trying to catch myself in unhealthy behaviors.
Yeah.
So yes, my first reaction. So your fear was somewhat justified in the sense that my first reaction was to become defensive and perhaps even angry.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And yes, to go on, I tend towards, because of my ADHD issues, Discord has been a very mixed bag for me.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, it's useful for socialization and keeping in touch. On the other hand, it is, especially on my last account, because you've seen that this is my alt account.
Yes.
On my last account, I had the same with same problem with Discord servers that you have with tabs.
You were in too many, yeah.
I was in too many, and it was sensory overload. Because remember, I've got the dual sensory overload of both ADHD and autism.
I believe they call it ADHD, yes.
Yeah. Mm. So I had that level of sensory overload running into me. And so I basically quit Discord cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And this obviously created problems. There was I believe you remember a period of time where my availability was even worse than it is now, because we hadn't even established the whole texting thing with Jack yet.
Yes.
That was a result of me having such consistent and intense sensory overload with Discord that for the sake of my own health, I had to just quit cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And I will fully admit this, I've been getting better about it, but I have overcompensated in the opposite direction, as is tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm sure you have that experience where
yes,
because of a behavior that was causing you distress, you overcompensate in the opposite direction. I did that with Discord. And as a result, I sort of became Discord shy and regulated. Because like there used to be a time where I would have at least one. I would have the Discord tab open at all times and have it like constantly visible. Because I found myself in a situation where even on my alt account, and I still to this day I struggle with this. I'm only on 2 servers, this and the Rabbit server.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I find myself, whenever I open Discord, I clear the entire thing, and then I just find myself staring at it, waiting for someone to say something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that can, even if it takes hours, even if it's to the detriment of my schedule at the time.
Yeah.
And as a result, I have made it a habit to not have Discord open and only open it when needed. But again, I fully acknowledge this is my bad. I have overcompensated in the opposite direction, and as a result, I am not opening it even when it is needed.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that I always set my Discord to invisible. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I set my status to invisible because, you know, so one of the possible solutions I've come up with, and this is something that I'm implementing, and I will ask that when you see that it's not being implemented, to either poke me, like send me a DM, or have Jack text me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to keep my status as online whenever I'm online, so I'm not going to just have it default to invisible.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay logged in on my phone. So that way, if you were to send me, you'd know when I'm online, when I'm away, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you send me a DM, I would get a notification for it the same way I'd get for a text. And because I have my phone on me at all times, I'd actually see it.
Okay.
That is my current trial. Obviously, it's not a perfect solution, and it's not something we'll know if it works immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But that is my sort of, you have brought up an issue, and this is my attempt to rectify an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I value your input and opinion.
Okay.
I've already implemented it. I'm logged in on my phone, and my status should be online. Tell me if it's not.
No, it's online.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it's going to be, unless I'm actually offline. Which will be when I'm like, well, it'll probably default to away when I'm sleeping or something like that. But even then, I'll probably see the notifications after the fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is my attempted compromise, and then we'll give it a few weeks, see how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, this is basically a roundabout way of saying, I get it. I get that that's a scary thing to do, is to bring up things, and I think as long as we are, but I think we are at a point where our relationship is good enough that we can just talk it through like this.
Yeah.
Man, today's stream really has been therapy, huh?
No, this I was gonna say this session has definitely been therapy.
I mean, I think the issue is that when it's just 2 people when it's a dialogue rather than a scene, as it were.
Yeah.
It naturally lends itself more to that.
Yeah. But no, this has definitely been more of a therapy session than, just 2 people talking, necessarily.
I mean, hey, I'm probably going to end up doing that as a side hustle at some point. So just consider it practice for me. But yeah, how long have we've been going?
About 2 hours now, yeah. That's sort of the reason why I've just been putzing about doing stuff not actually, you know, part of the mission, because I didn't want to start a new mission with us so close to ending.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining today's Fuzzy and Mill therapy session. We hope that it helps you improve your own relationships with your mentally ill friends and family.
But yeah. Stop talking. I don't come here to listen to you talk. Which sounds very bad considering you're a woman, but you know, it's the old man was talking, I'd tell him to shut up as well. If that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, no, we are equal opportunity stop yapping people.
Yeah. That is where we are ending for today. Oh boy, that could be taken out of context badly. Thank you everybody for watching, yes, our extended therapy session, I guess. While I, you know, mostly blindly play Nioh in the background. I'd like to do it again, because I like playing Nioh. Even if I've been struggling with the DLC, because the DLC is a lot harder. In terms of future stuff, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, as always. Saturday is going to be our Anime of 2023 tier list that I have put together myself, because I was so sick of waiting for people on fucking Tier Maker to do one properly. Otherwise, again, thank you for watching. Please do give us a follow here on Twitch and all that YouTube stuff. Oh no, Jack's not here to do it.
Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, and leave a comment if you enjoyed the video.
Thank God, I don't have to debase myself like that. Otherwise, hopefully we will see you on Saturday. Good night.
Bye-bye.